Hello, everyone. Welcome to the wasmCloud community stream or wasmCloud Wednesday for Wednesday, November the 1st. New month, new community. I don't know. Today, we've got a pretty fun, mostly discussion-packed community meeting, but we've got a nice little demo in the beginning since we've officially released Wattum 0.8. I just wanted to show off, I wanted to talk about the changes, the things that have improved, and then show one really nice uh, parsing or validation thing that will help people who are using Wattum. And then we're going to be talking about a couple of things, mostly around our documentation, the update to WASM Time 14, moves in the organization around changes to our wasmCloud monorepo, and then got some special shout outs that I want to do. All right, let's go ahead and move forward. I'm just gonna show a couple of things from the Wattum 0.8 release, latest and greatest Wattum. We think you're gonna love it. I want to talk about a couple of things that came in this version that are newer. The first of which that it's not exactly easy to demo because you kind of have to like run on an older version of Wattum and then update to the newer version. But Wattum 0.8 includes support for fully reconstituting state from heartbeats. There was actually an issue that we noticed where if Wattum were to go offline for a certain period of time and then come back online, it actually didn't have all the right information about annotations to be able to make all of its normal decisions about, hey, go run 3 more actors or run this provider on this host. And so a couple of bug fixes and improvements later, we are able to fully reconstitute state from heartbeats. And this just kind of fully delivers on the promise that we were talking about with Wattum, which is if you hook in Wattum to an existing lattice, it's able to synthesize all of the state and then issue commands from there. So that's a big update. The update to the control interface client by Taylor is really great because it improves on a couple of things that we're doing around querying links and claims from the host. And we'll actually be able to issue commands to the latest version of wasmCloud with our changes to essentially auto scale actors. Now, the thing that I want to show off in this quick little demo is a change that Aishwarya put in, which was a huge quality of life improvement for people using Wattum. So if you, with Wattum, when people are putting and deploying manifests for applications, there's a very wide range of applications that you could deploy. And so when it comes to manifest validation, we're primarily concerned that people are putting valid, like OAM formatted JSON, which we're now using a JSON schema specifier or whatever it's called, a JSON schema doc to compare the JSON schema to. So we can actually, if you take a Wattum manifest and say you didn't include the name on a component, for example, I think this is something that should fail it. We'll get a YAML parsing error saying, hey, this first component that you have, this is a nice little like YAML error where it's saying, hey, I expected to find this thing and I didn't find it. But that is actually going to fail the validation instead of, us kind of bringing that in and failing to deserialize. So we can fail the YAML validation directly. This is really nice if you're working in a YAML editor. Actually, you can pull up our JSON schema and it will display like all the correct keys to use for a Wattum manifest. So maybe we can publish like a VS Code thing publicly for that. That would be pretty neat. But the real thing, one of the biggest things that we're going to prevent now in this version of Wattum is it's not a perfect measure, but it's a 99% case preventing people from getting into a bad state with Wattum. Right now, we have a restriction where only one version of a provider per link name can run on a host. So like if I run the HTTP server provider on the default link on one host, you can't run the same provider of a different version or the same version on that default link. And so we're actually going to prevent this at deploy time with Wattum. So I fixed my WADA manifest. Huh, that'd be nice. Fixed my WADA manifest so I can deploy the Echo model. And if I take a look at this sample model for KV counter, you can see that I am going to try and deploy HTTP server 0.19.0 on the same potential host. If you try to deploy this with Wadum now, we'll get a note back saying, hey, this provider is already deployed or scheduled to be deployed with a different version in this other application, Echo. Now, like I said, this isn't a perfect measure. This assumes some level of the fact that you're using the same OCI repository for an individual provider. And it assumes that, pushing different versions or that a particular version is immutable, which is an assumption we make across the wasmCloud ecosystem. But we do validate that it's not in the host. But this is really nice because with the current version and how we are scheduling things, it prevents people from getting into a kind of a nasty state where we're kind of continually trying to start a provider over and over. So that is one of the things that came in Wadum 0.8. And we're going to be rolling this out along with wasmCloud 0.80 in Wash, hopefully a little bit later today. So all of these things will kind of just come bundled with the next time you run Wash up. Any questions on Wadum 0.8? Alrighty. Well, I think that we can go ahead and move on to the discussion heavy part of the community meeting, which talks, we want to talk about the documentation overhaul first. And Bailey, I know that you've worked on this pretty extensively. I'm happy to throw the mic over to you, or I can just talk generally through things. It's up to you.
Yeah, happy to start. So, kudos goes all around. Yordis pointed us at, I think it's called Diaxis, on a way of changing it so that we can talk through things like from a concepts level and then breaking down our docs. So mainly what we've done is restructured our docs because that part's the really painful part. I was a little overzealous with my first refactor where I was like, everything's going to be a component by now, right, guys? But that's not exactly the case yet. That work's still ongoing. So this is just the refactor side of it. And if you click docs, Brooks, since you're sharing, you can see that we've got now a concept section, and that's something that we're going to keep adding more to. We have several more different types of docs that we want to add. But what's nice is that's going to be our launching point for explaining, what wasmCloud is, what WASM is, components, how all these different things go. And then you can kind of dive into workflows and then also separation for references. So yeah, now it's in a great spot where other people can contribute. You don't have to worry about us breaking you because we're restructuring it all again, right? TM, that may, I hope so. I hope we don't change things. Too crazy other than just knocking out a bunch of content now. And so that work, I guess, is still ongoing, and that's the main part. And so I also want to give kudos to Ben, Lachlan, and Victor, who ultimately got this the last refactor in over the line, which was just the minimal set. So thanks everybody, and I hope more folks join in on the party. Docs are great and very important.
Yeah, I was struggling to find the link, but I really found that like diataxis methodology or not methodology, philosophy really intriguing to read. It makes a lot of sense. I feel like we half approached that with a persona view in mind. But it makes a lot of sense. People just kind of based on their persona gravitate to like for me, I always want to go straight to the quick start and then try it, and a lot of people have talked about like going straight to concepts. I'm glad that this is all huge kudos to everybody for getting this all at the top level, and then people can go explore and have fun from there.
Ready for the next thing?
Yeah. All I would ask for those of you all who have taken a look at our documentation, or if you're totally new to it, just let us know what you think. If you feel like things are logically ordered in a way that appeals to you and whatever persona you are, please let us know. And of course, the wasmCloud.com dev repository is open source. You're totally free to open up a PR, even if it's just a draft PR for comments at any time. Love using that. All right. Well, unless there's questions, go ahead, Bailey.
Yeah, so the next thing that we wanted to talk about is the work that's happening on Maine right now. In Maine, oh, hang on. Did I mention somewhere the diataxis so people know? Oh,
In the docs, Bailey, sorry. I meant in the docs itself.
that would have been smart. We should do that. No, we didn't, but we should. That's a good idea. Yeah, I think that's pretty helpful, although I hope that it's a little bit self-explanatory. But no, yeah, we should have that in a contributing guide and say like this is the philosophy. Absolutely. Any other thoughts there? We'll just keep taking your ideas, just saying. Thank you, Yordis. Okay. So the other thing that's happening on Main inside the wasmCloud repo is that we have wasmTime 14 on there. If you're not aware, wasmTime is the WebAssembly runtime that we bring into wasmCloud. It is a runtime hosted in the Bytecode Alliance. It's one of two there. There's another one called the WebAssembly Micro Runtime, otherwise known as WAMR. But we use wasmTime. wasmTime is really great because it's the reference implementation used for the component model. And so right now we have experimental support for WebAssembly components. And of course, that's a little bit of a moving target, right? Because the specification is changing. We're aiming to launch Preview 2. Now it's looking a little bit more like it's going to happen in January. But the target for wasmTime 15, which has not been released yet, but will be released at the end of this month, is going to have pinned spec versions, aka we're thinking this might be the stable one this time, and that we think we will have full implementations of the things that had been in flight, WASI sockets and WASI HTTP, which were the last remaining pieces where there was a little bit of churn on the WIT definitions. And why does that cause breaking changes? Well, the WIT API is something that we generate bindings to. And so if the two types don't match, then then you get an error, basically. And so that's why it's been a little bit of a moving target, and the whole ecosystem is going to greatly benefit from being at this level of stability. So wasmTime 14 is where wasmCloud main is at today. And wasmCloud on main, so not the version that we're cutting today. I'm kind of looking at Connor there just to make sure I get this part right. The version that we're cutting today is going to be on basically wasmTime 13. So it doesn't have these breaking changes in it that I'm discussing now. That's on main. But on main, it pulls in this one of the last features that we needed out of the component model, which is called resources. And when you think about resources, consider them as something that's like a file descriptor or a file handle. You want to be able to say, this is data that other people own, and I want to be able to pass it around my system without doing massive copies of like a huge file. But it's not just for files. It can be just about anything that is essentially an entity, something that has a lifetime. And so resources is our representation of that within the component model. And so wasmTime 14 for the first time landed resources. That's something we've been working on basically for the past 6 months. So it's a huge thing. And it was the last thing that we needed to kind of like stabilize in our WIT definitions. And so that's wasmTime 14. wasmTime 14 also landed WASI HTTP implementation. There are a few more things that have to change there, but We're trying to wrap those up basically over the next week. And then wasmTime 15 is going to use pinned versions of the upstream WebAssembly org WIT definitions. And so while we can't say Preview 2 is going to launch at that date, because we need 2 different implementations and 2 different runtimes to say that this is ready, at least one of the reference implementations will be on a basically stable version of the specification. And we'll only be changing the specification if the other reference implementation, which is called JCO, the JavaScript component tooling, which allows you to run basically component model pieces inside the browser and Node.js, and also allows you to take stuff and compile it into JavaScript. So JCO has a lot of different pieces, but we're specifically talking about the runtimey pieces within JCO here, which basically WASI fills in WASI and the component model in a more JavaScript runtime way. And so once we have that, that is when we call Preview 2 done and ready to launch. So it's really exciting and we're really, really close. So moving to wasmTime 14 is a big deal. And then at the end of the month, we'll be moving to wasmTime 15. And that might be the 1 TM of the WIT definitions that we're going to, launch with, to say that this is our WASI definitions for the component model. Questions? That was probably a lot. That's my brain dump.
So Bailey, I think there's always 2 stories. And even in your roadmap blog post you did for the Bytecode Alliance, there were 2 stories. There's the standard story or the WebAssembly component model story. Standard isn't the right word, my apologies. And then there is the ecosystem, story. Talk to me about or can you tell us about, the stuff that's happening outside of the core Bytecode Alliance efforts, on the runtime, on the component model, and ultimately on the push towards WASI 0.2. Is that the designation, which is the next big point release? And what about the rest of the ecosystem? How is that shaping up? What are the key projects? I know we're all excited about Go 121, but maybe is it going to be supported better? What's going on?
Yeah, so last night on stream, Joe demonstrated using Go 121 to build and compile with Go, but we also showed some of the limitations that exist with Go 121. It's partial WASI Preview 1 support. And when we talk about the component model, what we're talking about is WASI Preview 2, but I like to refer to it as, a .2 release, mainly because Preview doesn't really inspire confidence, but you should actually feel confident in it, and that we're voting as an ecosystem and an entire community across many different basically software giants, saying that this is the version where it is stable at this point. We're calling it a peninsula of stability instead of an island of stability, which is kind of what we referred to for Preview 1. And when we say peninsula, what we mean is that we can take an adapter and take what you produced on anything on 0.2.0 and move it to anything that comes after it. And so if you work and build on top of 0.2.0, we will take you into the next world, which is potentially some patch releases, like additive things. So like say we add the support for dictionary and maps, that would be an 0.2.1 release, let's say. But 0.3 is our next plan, and that is a breaking change, but it's a breaking change that we can adapt you to. And that's why it's a peninsula of stability. And you can build things and ship it to production, and people absolutely are planning to and will. The marketing name is basically Preview 2 because people know what Preview 1 is, and that's how we've been talking about it for years. But yeah, it makes me happy to call it .2 because don't be so scared. It is an 0.2 in that we know we have to make a breaking change, but it's not like you're on your own. It's not like the breaking changes we've been doing for month to month while working on this thing. These are different.
Great. So let me just summarize what I think I heard is when we hit WASI 0.2, that's when I should feel safe that as you iterate forward into WASI 0.21 or 0.2.1 or wherever, and towards WASI 0.3, which will be async, and those associated features, that I'll be stable, and my components will work not just on runtimes like wasmCloud, but on other runtimes that support the WebAssembly component model.
Yeah, I should give a shout out. Michael Yuang gave a demo of wasmEdge's work towards adding the component model.
Wow.
That's huge. There's a lot more work to go. He actually, if anybody is interested in doing that work and they like writing in C++, he made a call to action for working on the WASI file system support within wasmEdge. That was something that they don't have a ton of experience in, especially trying to make it work on Windows. And so they would love some help accelerating that, and they're a fellow CNCF project, so shout out to them. And also, yeah, there's no restriction on which reference implementations. Like, we need 2 runtimes. It doesn't have to be Jayco. Jayco's job is really hard to make it work. Like, say, take the fetch API and make that work really well with WASI HTTP. Might not be as challenging for somebody that's, another server side runtime. So anyways, yeah, shout out for that. You mentioned Go 121. Go 121 has partial WASI Preview 1 support, but as we demoed last night, I can take something that was built for Preview 1 and adapt it to Preview 2, and that right now needs to use TinyGo if you want to use some of the features of WASI HTTP. And the main reason for that is that you need the Go export pragma, or it might be, use a different word in Go, maybe derivative, but the ability for me to export APIs is basically a requirement in the Preview 2 space and for Go. And so that means that we're trying to target a lot of things for Go 122. I can't promise that they'll all land. I think we have another month or 2 before you kind of get locked in for exactly what's going to be in the release. But we have a number of folks working in the community, both in the Bytecode Alliance and at large in the Big Go community, as they call it, pushing that forward. And so some of the things that I linked last night, and I can link more here, is working on stack switching to work with memory a little bit better natively in Go, adding Golang bindgen tooling that's Go native, so you can write your bindings in Go, and it eliminates the need for CGO. There's just so many things happening in that space, and a lot of folks are involved. And Justin, just want to say, I just finished uploading the video for the October 10th Golang working group that's within the Bytecode Alliance SIG for guest languages. I'm sorry, Brooks, I see your hand's been raised for a hot minute. So
no, it's all good. I think it actually addressed my first question, which I'll just restate as a sentence, and then you can check me if I'm right. WASM time 15 feels like the right time to start pushing component build docs and examples and components on the website, because that's when we have some relative level of confidence for stability, and there may be some small changes in certain WIT definitions or the adapter, but we can experimental warning it and then just kind of pull it out once it's ready.
Yeah, on the Bytecode Alliance stream last night, Pat and I kind of tried to shout out like the specific tweaks that we know about right now. They're very small, minor, like one little function change. But right now, one little function change can be quite a pain to deal with, because then it just says, I can't work with this whole interface. But in terms of work to get that landed and get it out for WASM time 15 is really small. And so that's why we're very confident, folks. Let's make this real this time. So exactly, we're basically officially making the call for more implementers of the component model, starting with WASM time 15.
Awesome. And my other question was around something that you said you knew was going to be a break and change that may come as like a fast follow to WASI Preview 2/0.2, but we can provide adapters for it. do those adapters or that adapt step, does that have to happen at build time, or can that happen at runtime also?
So
Specifically.
WASM components are statically linked, so they're not dynamically linked. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it at runtime, that you couldn't do it by the host automatically for our users, which I think is where you are headed.
It's exactly where I'm headed. Yeah. I'm mostly concerned with preserving I built my app as a WebAssembly component, and like I don't want to ever have to update it unless I want to change something in my code. And that's something that we can promise when we have a very generic and unchanging ABI like the WasmBus protocol. But between whatever highest number to the left Simver, between major versions of WASI, we will not be able to promise that effectively.
Yes. So part of the whole design of the component model is that it gives us all the information we need about all the interfaces that are used, what versions they're on, like everything we could possibly want to be able to build adapters that take it forward into the future will be available. So it's kind of like a new frontier for being able to migrate software going forward, which is pretty cool and exciting.
Okay. Yeah, that's something that I want to keep a close eye on, because I don't actually really mind it as much, because breaking changes between WASI releases aren't going to be something that happen often. And it's something that we can add like an easy adapt step for, which is really cool. It'll just be really important to call that out in our, like for wasmCloud, for example. I know that we are trying to work on all of our APIs so that we can stabilize and call wasmCloud a 1.0 once we're like full on component support, and we're happy with a lot of other aspects in the wasmCloud ecosystem. It's not just around WASI Preview 2. But if a WASI Preview 3 came along, maybe 6 months after or a year after, whatever timeline, is that a rough time? Whatever, that's a like crazy question. I'd be interested in seeing if we can make it happen in like a minor release for wasmCloud.
Cool. Thank you, Brooks.
Yeah, thanks, Bailey. Thank you so much to Bailey for rolling through a little bit longer than your original ETA. I know you got to do something at the half hour, so I appreciate it. And bye, Bailey. All right. Next, I wanted to get some just talk officially about where we're at with the move to the wasmCloud monorepo. There have been a lot of moving parts here, and I want to specifically give a shout out right now to Ahmed and Yordis for working with us through this move. Both of you, I think, put in PRs into Wash at the same time as we're trying to do this whole big Git subtree merge. And both of you were able to reopen the PR against the main wasmCloud repo and get your work in. So huge thank you and kudos for being patient with us there. I think we've learned a lot about moving things into the monorepo, and there are a couple of existing crates and things that we are going to move into here as well. Let's see if the control interface is in here. That's one, for example. So we'll just approach that with a little bit of a quicker, easier process, kind of get it all done in one day, do the public archive before moving it, things like that. But I want to talk about where we're at. Right now, we have, the main project in this repository is the wasmCloud binary. So if you come to this repo and you clone it and you do cargo run, you're running the wasmCloud binary. If you take a look under crates, we've got a nice variety of crates in here now, some supporting things that are almost always just used within the wasmCloud ecosystem, like wascap and provider archive, crates that support the runtime itself, like actor and host and compat, and now wash CLI and wash lib, which you may not know, but the wash CLI, the thing you install, we actually don't have the crate name wash. It's actually wash-CLI. I'm very salty about it, so I'm going to continue moving on from there. So all of the contributions to wash these crates, the core runtime, is going to happen in the wasmCloud repo. We're going to have a couple of different releases, the ability to do releases for Wash and wasmCloud, for example, independently. We're still retaining that with our GitHub actions, but the top level release is going to be, or at least the latest one is going to be the wasmCloud runtime, because it's the main piece of the ecosystem here in this repo. Other than that, all I really wanted to shout out here is that I've already seen 1 or 2 examples of working in this style of repository where, for example, a change to or updating the control interface inside of this repo. Now you're able to change Wash and wasmCloud at the exact same time, and you're able to test that at the same time, the new version of wasmCloud, the new version of Wash together, submit it all in one PR. And I think that just in general, we're going to see a lot of benefit here when we're updating multiple different parts of the ecosystem. Looking forward, we're still working on, or we're still moving capability providers into this repository. Some of them, like there's an open PR right now for the HTTP client provider that is using WIT to generate its types instead of Smithy, or using WIT bindgen. And additionally, I think crates like the wasmCloud control interface are going to move in here as well. And though it may seem like we're kind of pushing all of the contributions into this central place, and it's just going to be like kind of an exponential increase in how much activity there is here, it's really just consolidating. I'm going to say something that's going to sound like I'm saying the exact same thing. It's really removing the need to coordinate many different PRs to push out a change. I just made a change to the control interface crate, and that required me opening a change in control interface, in WADM, in Wash, in wasmCloud. I had to make a change in the Lattice observer, which is then the Elixir library, which is kind of separate. But it's just so many different PRs that we no longer need to point Git references around and coordinate merging at the right time and releasing and all that stuff. So really looking forward to this. For folks who are working in the ecosystem, if you have any, I know monorepos can be a little bit polarizing. So if you see friction in the workflow and contributing to something here, just let us know. I mean, obviously we are going to be contributing to this all the time anyways, but I really want to make sure that it doesn't feel higher friction. And really what I'm hoping for is for people who are new to the ecosystem, they can plop right into this repository, see our contributing and code of conduct, and get used to the project without looking across the broad landscape of repos that we have. Okay, that was a lot of spiel. I know that Victor and Roman and Connor have all been working diligently to merge other projects into this repo. So you all are welcome to chime in here if I said anything wrong, or if you want to add anything else, or otherwise happy to ask questions or answer questions. Alrighty, then I think we only have one more thing left. Ooh, there's the logo. There's only one more thing left in this community meeting, and it is to say thank you to so many of you who have been contributing. This is just the list over the past month across a couple of our repositories. You can see that some people, some overachievers up here at the top have been opening a ton of PRs or whatever. But what I really want to shout out is the awesome community members who are here and contributing to wasmCloud. You can check up here on this list, which, by the way, this is actually our CNCF dev stats. All of this is automatically collected. You all can go take a look at it and take a look at different views. I was recently in here looking at stuff for the wasmCloud incubating proposal. So very fun stuff. I want to give a huge shout out to people like Yordis and Ahmed and Jonas, and I think this is Bob and Abe. All of you are opening, the number on the right here seems small, but then you realize that this is only over the past month. And if you go take a look at these PRs, these are like huge pieces of functionality, great quality of life improvements, new features, bug fixes. wasmCloud just wouldn't be as good as it is today without you all contributing. And I really, really want to thank you for doing that. Oh, wait, Yordis and Ahmed, you're both on the call. Thank you guys so much for doing this stuff. Yordis, I mean, I saw one of your recent ones about the status message or the status indicator on the washboard is just something like it. I can't say it any particular way to make it sound better. Like it sounds like something that's so small, but it's like that last little 10% of polish on a project that makes it so good. Ahmed, I'm afraid to file issues in the Wadham repository now because if I tag it with good first issue, you're going to knock it out of the park and solve it in just a couple of days. So thank you both, and thank you everybody. Really appreciate the work that you've been doing. It's really great. Would you all like to make a speech? I guess there's time for that too. Oh. Yeah, so all jokes aside, thank you all so much. And while we're there, may as well get to this little PR, which I don't think I brought up officially on the community stream yet, but we officially put in our bid to move wasmCloud to the incubating tier in the CNCF. If you aren't familiar with the CNCF tiers, if you take a look at the cloud native landscape, there's essentially, before you're in the CNCF, you donate a project as a sandbox level, you can graduate to incubating, and then officially graduate from the CNCF. They're relative levels of project indicators of project maturity, adoption, contribution, and ability to be a good cloud native steward. So it's really important when we're looking at the incubating requirements to really self-reflect on what we do as a community and what we've done as a project. And, taking a look at the dev stats and over the past, wow, what year is it? Almost 4 years of wasmCloud. We have really grown and in adoption, contribution, and project maturity over the last few years. So this is huge. Thank you all so much for throwing on your encouragement reactions. It's just cool to see people who are following. You're welcome to take a look at some of this stuff as well, but there won't be any movement on this PR for another at least 2 weeks. Everything freezes leading up to KubeCon. So for now, we are just going to watch and wait, but this should move its way through the process pretty quickly, I think, post KubeCon. So super, super exciting. And some of the numbers in here are really impressive. Like, did you know that we have over 440 contributors to the wasmCloud org? That's a lot of people. We are probably over this now, honestly, over 10,000 commits across all of our things. This is like a relatively like lines of code indicator of progress thing, but it's really cool just to see the number of pull requests and contributors and stars and things that we've seen in the community. So wrapping that section all up, just hats off to all of you for making this happen. Yeah, Taylor.
Also, in terms of community news, there's also a new WASH maintainer to announce. So we have, as WASH project maintainers, we recently accepted in Victor, who has been doing a lot of work on WASH lately. And so just wanted to call that out. Like, he's been doing a bunch of really good contributions. We're really glad to have him there. I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, woohoo! Look at him right there. He's a maintainer. All right, folks. Any questions on how we got such awesome community members, CNCF incubating, anything like that? Alrighty, well, I think we can just wrap up the community meeting now with a quick shout out that a good few, many of us will be at or in Chicago next week at Cloud Native WASM Day, and then Cloud Native KubeCon, Cloud Native Con KubeCon Day. So we're all going to be hanging out there in Chicago. If anybody is there and wants to hang out, some of us will be probably at the Cosmonic booth, which is M21. But we'll also have a wasmCloud project booth in the project pavilion alongside all of the other CNCF projects. So please come by, come say hi. If you are in the Chicago area, you're going to be in that area for the conference. I've tried to pull this up live a couple of times and it's kind of a pain each time, but we have, if you take a look at the Cloud Native WASM Day schedule, we have Bailey is going to be doing a keynote with Kate Goldenring from Fermion at the beginning of the day. And then we've got an awesome talk coming up. Wow, these are so good, about orchestrating WebAssembly from Taylor and Dan, both of which who have been on this call and contributing to wasmCloud. They're on the Cosmonic side, all the things. I'm going to be doing a talk that I won't try to find live. That's going to be at the main conference, I believe, on Wednesday. If you just look up Brooks or wasmCloud in the search thing, it'll come up. So it is going to be a really exciting week next week. I think I double checked the time. And my talk is not at the exact same time as the wasmCloud community meeting, although I think it's pretty much right after. So next week's community meeting will probably be short and sweet from the project pavilion. So I'm going to try and host it from the wasmCloud booth. So maybe loud, may have just quick discussions and call outs from the event itself, but we will be here. So feel free to, if you're in Chicago and at the conference, think about it. You could be on the community meeting live in person. So just putting that out there. All right, everyone. Well, I think we'll wrap it up for today and give folks a little time back. Thank you so much for coming. See you next week.